We're going to be talking about hitting the bag bare knuckle. And contrary to what many of you probably thought I was going to say, I do think there's a benefit to getting rid of the gloves and actually just hitting with your fists. We're going to break all that down right now. So my very first question to somebody when I'm at the gym and I see them hitting the bag bare knuckle, I would go, why are you doing that? And in my opinion, there are some answers that are going to be good answers and there's some answers that are going to be ridiculous. And you don't have to be doing this all the time, obviously. I bet you even the bare knuckle fighters, bare knuckle fighting championship, I bet you guys there are not even training without gloves most of the time. But first let's talk about why you might want to train without gloves. The very obvious reason to me is you're going, you know what? I've hit the bag, I've hit the pads, I've hit people over and over and over, but I've never actually felt like what's gonna do to my hand when I hit something without that protection. And guess what? If you ever have to defend yourself and you're in that moment where you're going, ooh, I just have to punch, and you're not capable of going, okay, I'm gonna palm fist them, you're gonna do that instead to protect your hand, well then you're coming with your fist. And if you hit with your fist for the very first time with no glove and no hand wraps, you're probably just gonna shatter your hand. Hit somebody right in the skull, yeah, you might knock them out, you might damage them, you might also walk away with the need to go and get your hand slapped in a cast or a bunch of pins in there to hold it in place. A lot of bad things can happen when you strike bare knuckle, so you wanna make sure that occasionally you get on the bag and you see what it's like to hit without that protection of a 10-ounce glove. Aside from that, I struggle with any thought process that people have why they might hit a bag without gloves. I know some people would say something like, oh yeah, you know, I want to practice my punches, but I'm not a boxer and I'm never going to put gloves on. But guess what? Longevity. We want to make sure our hands are not going to hurt as we age. If you hit the bag over and over and over, you're gonna eventually go, oh, arthritis, or my hands hurt to close, or something like that. So I would suggest being smart, and yes, sometimes, and I've done it, hit the bag without gloves, but let's go through some tips which you can utilize to keep yourself safe when you do this. Number one, pull back on your punch power. Like sort of temper the amount of power you're gonna put in, because guess what? If you launch a full-blown shot in as hard as you can, there's a good chance you're either gonna hurt your knuckles or damage your wrist, and you always need to be aware of how heavy or how hard that bag is that you're hitting. If it's one of those little bags that you can punch and it's just like kapoo and it takes off, like some people look so good when they hit bags, and then I go over and I hit it and I'm like, oh, that's why. But if you have a heavy one, you need to temper back and just work something like 50% power. You kind of snap your hands out instead of aiming through. And this will help you continue on the bag with no gloves without actually damaging them. Tip number two is to be very careful of scraping your knuckles across the bag. Now this does not usually happen when you throw a straight punch because it's directly in. As long as you hit the center of the bag, you're gonna be okay. You're gonna hit and fire back. But when you start throwing hooks, if you happen to slide your hand across or you do some sort of uppercut and you slide, you're gonna feel the skin on those knuckles start to burn and you could completely rip the skin off. And I have seen this before. I actually taught a hockey class or a group of hockey players one time some striking, and within about 2 minutes of being beside bags, they were already hitting really hard. We hadn't even started class, and then all of a sudden blood leaking down. And I just went, oh no, no, no. This is why we have to learn technique. So if you're not going to utilize the gloves, you need to make sure you're hitting right in the center of the bag, especially on your hooks, so you're not ripping up those knuckles. When you throw a punch with the glove on, you can, I'm trying to think, maybe squeeze your hand about 60, 70% and get away with not really damaging yourself. When you don't have that glove, now you need to really be squeezing upon impact, especially if you're going over at 50% power. As you squeeze your hand really tight, your forearm is going to engage. And when your forearm engages, I feel just a little bit slower. Nice and relaxed, snap, snap, squeeze 100%. Everything stiffens. So recognize that yes, your punches are going to be a little bit slower because you are going to have to really protect that hand by biting down, making that 100% tight fist and really squeezing that forearm. If you don't do this, you're definitely going to end up blowing out your hand or damaging that wrist. So this is why we do not hit the bag all the time with no gloves. Once you put those gloves on, you can increase your speed, you can hit harder, you can practice aiming through the bag. You don't do all this when you're bare knuckle. So for those people out there who are interested in this conversation, this topic, they wanted to hear from a professional fighter, there you have it. Yes, play around with bag work sometimes with the bare knuckles, but don't prioritize it. Really for me, it's probably like if I hit the bag 100 times, one of those 100 times is gonna be without gloves. The rest, why would I not want to protect these? I need to be able to use them. And not just for right now, but I don't want pain down the road. I don't want to be older going, oh, my hands, I can't hit anything. So be smart, take care of yourself. Gloves, wrist wraps are designed for a reason. Utilize them. That's all, guys. Thanks for joining today. I will see you back here soon for another video.